Llegó la primavera JCPenney con la última moda. Piezas cómodas y ligeras. Mezcla y combina lo nuevo de tus marcas favoritas y crea looks originales que se acomodan a tu presupuesto. Como las polos de St. John's Bay con un pantalón en algodón o un simple suéter y jeans de A&A. Encuentra el bolso de Liz Claiborne que siempre has querido y sandalias que combinen. Para noches más cálidas, elige pijamas ligeras y frescas de Briere. Trae a tu familia y descubran lo nuevo de primavera. JCPenney. Vale la pena.
All right, I just rolled out of bed, so apologies for looking like this now. The Flyers have fired John Tortorella. It's one of them things where last night we recorded a new episode of Kickin It With Knuble, myself, Mike, and a guest. We'll talk about that now. We were talking about things, and we talked about the quote from the other night. And I had a very strong gut feeling, you'll hear it in this podcast, of how important that quote was. And I genuinely thought, like, as someone who's a diehard fan like myself, someone who spends a ton of money on the team, I mean, look at my room, it's painted orange, that's something I have no interest in hearing, and I think it's bullshit, quite frankly. And what is it, like a day and a half, 30-something hours later, he's fired? Like, it's just one of them things. The Flyers had to do this to move on for the rebuild. Like, there was nothing more you could squeeze out of this coach. I don't think there was anything more you could squeeze out of the players. I don't think there was anything moving forward that was going to get any sort of positive result with John Tortorella as the head coach of this team. I just don't. And I think, some of the fan base is probably going to be like, oh my God, like, this is horrible, when in reality, it's not. And genuinely, I'm not going to try and sit here and celebrate someone getting fired, because that's not good. I mean, you are taking a step back. You have to find a new coach and go through all that again. But it is one of those things where you look at where the Flyers are. You've seen what you can out of this group. Torts came in here and did what he had to do. He fixed the culture and all that. With the air quotes and everything, fix the culture. He got all the guys that you didn't want here out. Hayes, D'Angelo, Provorov, I could go on and on, of all the guys. Wade Allison was another one of, like, guys that were here. Frost, Farabee, Lawton ends up getting moved. That's a little different, but still, I mean, you saw changes in terms of personnel. You saw, the Flyers almost get to the playoffs and then miss, and a lot of that, like, they name a captain during his tenure as coach, and then there's the whole thing where he scratches the captain and all this stuff. So it was like there was always something with this, because he's John Tortorella, and you know what he is, and you knew what that was getting into it. I've said this for a while. I didn't think Torts was the coach of this team. I didn't think the Flyers could go anywhere further. Almost made the playoffs, last year, and then they fell off a fucking cliff. So it's just one of them things where, and then you go into this season, it's like, what more else can you scratch and claw at this? Like, it's pretty much the same roster, and you're only getting so much out of so many guys. Like, and you've seen that this year in terms of, personnel, the power play. Like, they had to have made moves this year. And again, you could not keep screaming accountability and saying all these different things and not make a move with your coaching staff this year. You just couldn't. You could not have a year like you're having with these stretch of games, and then the coach comes out and says that the other night and say, yeah, we're going to go into the next season with the same new era of orange. Like, that would not make any sense. So I can't think Briere is happy right now, considering, everything that was said, and then also going into, like I was saying, like the quote from the other night and all that, like, it's just brutal. It really is. I mean, so again, I think it's a smart move, because this is something that, I think you had to see coming. And, it's just one of them things where this is the other step of moving on, was doing this. And I was worried for a while with when the Flyers would do that and how long it would take them to pull the trigger on that, and if Torts would go upstairs and that whole thing, and that's not the case. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a step. It's a step in the rebuild. I'll say that. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts below. John Tortorella out as Flyers head coach. Talk to you guys. Bye.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back here to Kickin It With Knuble, episode 24. Mike, we are back right after Jimmy Dowd. We got one of the best people that I've known in hockey for a couple of years now, Derek Nasty Settlemyre. Nasty, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Always good to
I
talk hockey with you.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you guys having me. And Noobs, it's always good to see my boy. Like, you never seen this guy dance, Chris. You don't even know. They throw
Get
a
the
little
Run DMC going, yeah.
They
Get
throw a little
walk this way going,
walk this way. This guy's just lighting it up. He should have been on stage with Tyler and the boys from Run DMC. No, I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's funny you said I started smiling. You said Jimmy Dowd, the junkyard dog. I was thinking about him today. He's my boy. What a good guy he is, man.
Yeah, we had him on last week, and then our boys were playing against. Well, they didn't end up playing against each other, Minnesota last weekend, but their teams were there and opposite sides of the pool. But I didn't run into them. We had plans to see each other, but just didn't run into him there in Minneapolis. But Jimmy's a good guy, and it was fun to rehash with him. Living out of his trunk. He's living out of his trunk. He had looked like an old golf pro, with all his drawers and shirts and stuff. So it was kind of funny to go through that, go back and hash that out.
When he came to us at the year he came, it was so funny. He would keep asking me. He was like the only guy that wore these like little short shorts. They were made by Russell. They were gray, and I mean they were old school. Like when I was a kid, I remember my dad was handing these things out, and they were just blank gray shorts, like no big deal, right? And he had thin white socks, and then these gray t-shirts. So he's like, I gave him a whole. You guys had 4 or 5 different laundry bags, but he would always every couple days, hey, I need another pair of shorts. And I'm like, what the fuck's this guy doing? Is he eating them? So I remember, like, I would always look under guys' stalls to make sure everything was. I had a little problem with keeping things neat. And I open up, and he's got these things. He's got like 8 of them folded up, shorts, tees, all these socks. He's just hoarding them because he said, I'm almost done. So I'm trying to get as many as I can. So, but he was so organized. It made me laugh the way he folded them up. And I was like, man, you want to work with me? Because you're really good at staying organized.
I know you didn't know you were doing his wash while you were like his personal wash. Sliding in socks and underwear in there. Oh
yeah. That's right, man.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. That's funny. So obviously, like just kind of going off that, like Jimmy played that one year, 07, 08. Might as well start there. Obviously that year was like it's kind of it's kind of similar to right now, I guess, where you look at the Flyers now and like they need like some sort of a year like that. If you remember, like Mike, we've talked about this so many times on the show this year, like that 08 season and how they transitioned from 06, 07 to like one of the worst years. I didn't think we'd see 06, 07 again. I think we're actually seeing it right now, which kind of sucks. But in terms of that, like, Nasty, for you, is there anything that you can talk about from that 2008 year and just that run and everything like that?
Yeah, I'll start with what you just said about 06, 07. I believe it was the 40th year in the franchise as history. And it was at that point the worst season. But I have to say, like, it was still, we weren't winning, but I don't know, from Noobs could speak on being a player, but the guys we had such a good group of people. Now, a lot of people did funnel through that year because we were making moves and stuff, but I actually had a blast that year. With the guys and everything like that. Gags had he had 47 goals. Noobs had 24 that year, 30 assists. But it was a bad year. Forsberg gets traded, kind of started the ball rolling there, getting Coburn, in a deal. And who else did we pick up? We picked up Uppy and Ryan Parent. In that deal. Well, for later, and then Marty Biron, we got him over. So it kind of started the ball rolling, but. And then at Homer in 2007, he also had cap room, right? Like, which, they will have more in 2026. The Flyers will have a lot more cap room, but Homer had a little bit to work with. So obviously he signed Danny B, which Marty was already working that deal. Hey, Noobs, the last 20 games of the season, he was working that. And then we, obviously he's getting Tiemann and Hartnell right before, I guess the draft, I don't know if it was a deadline, however that worked.
Like
The
their
last
rights,
day. Yeah, right. Getting their rights and signing them, and then getting Joffrey Lupul and guys like Jimmy Dowd, we were just talking about, even putting him in a spot, and Jason Smith, Gator, ended up being a captain that year. That, those additions obviously were huge. I don't think the Flyers are going to be able to do anything like that, but that year was great. I mean, you go from being the worst team basically to, in the conference finals. Unfortunately, we were pretty much decimated with some injuries. Hatch was playing on one leg. Jeff Carter was out. Simone, I think, was out. Kobe took a puck in the face. He didn't play a couple games. And I think a couple of like big pieces to that year too, not only those players that we brought in was the fact that like Mike Richards kind of stepped up that year, and Jeff Carter did as well. They both, I think Richie had 28 goals and I think Karts had 29. And, obviously Knuble was going to put his close to 30 up anyway. That year was awesome, man. It was like, you go from losing most of your games to all of a sudden, you knew we were pretty good, and it was so much fun.
Yeah, it's super hard to revamp. That's like one of the quickest revamps. You could do, and get back on a positive side. And that year before really started, when Peter started, having a foot injury, and he started his ankle and.
Llegó la primavera JCPenney con la última moda. Piezas cómodas y ligeras. Mezcla y combina lo nuevo de tus marcas favoritas y crea looks originales que se acomodan a tu presupuesto, como las polos de St. John's Bay con un pantalón en algodón o un simple suéter y jeans de A&A. Encuentra el bolso de Liz Claiborne que siempre has querido y sandalias que combinen. Para noches más cálidas, elige pijamas ligeras y frescas de Briere. Trae a tu familia y descubran lo nuevo de primavera. JCPenney. Vale la pena.
I mean, he must have gone through 50 pairs of skates with you guys and Harry, and trying to get him right. And it's hard coming to the rink that year. Like, is Peter in tonight? He's such a big part of your team, and you're coming to the rink. Is he in? Is he in? It was almost day to day, and it was just really the morning. You take a morning skate, be fine. Then you get to the rink and be like, no, here's the lineup tonight, and then you're like, oh, he's gone. So super frustrating for everybody.
Yeah, that part, you're right. I didn't think of that. That part was frustrating. I remember us being in Anaheim, Noobs, and Peter, he really didn't want to play that night. He went through the morning skate, and Homer basically said, "Hey, like, you got to play tonight. Like, you haven't played in a while. We need you to play." And I think in the first period, he had 3 points, probably the first 8 minutes, and you're just like, you watch him, and you're like, really? Even that year, Noobs played with a guy. Like, the guy that year, he only dressed 40 games with us. He had 40 points in 40 games at about, as he would say, I'm at 50%. And you're like, well, dude, 50% isn't bad. That's a point a game. But God, he just couldn't, sometimes I wonder about, his feet, like, sitting in rooms with these people. We had to close the door and going over, maybe making him this special skate. And I just remember sitting there, and he had his insoles out. I said, put your feet on your insoles. Noobs, I know you know this. His toes are going this far past his insoles. And I'm like, hey, Peter, I'm no genius here, but like, when your foot's in there, you're obviously curling it, right? So when you curl your toes, now all of a sudden your knees kind of bow, and you're hit, like, it can't be right. And I said, I would think that's where your problems in your groins are coming from. You're turning your legs in a way that's not normal. Any skating's not a normal thing anyway, but it was just wild. And he was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, so why not just go to a 9 skate, instead of wearing the 8?
I know. I feel like we heard that like through the grapevine. Like, the dude had the wrong size skates. We're like, oh, is he fixed then? He's fixed. This is it. Like, this is it. What an idiot. He had the wrong skate. Imagine what he's going to do when he has the right skates on.
I know. I remember too as well. One day I ran up to the front of the skate zone, and I grabbed 2 pair of just like stock skates off the wall.
Stock skates. Yeah.
And he wore them in practice, and he's just flying. And you guys coming in the room going, yeah, this is great. He goes, nah, it didn't feel right. What?
I know.
But it was crazy.
Yeah. So he was kind of the beginning, having him in and out made for a real choppy season, that 06-07 season. But
yeah, it was tough that way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Essie, it's funny you say that because I remember going back and looking at that Anaheim game, and like going back and looking at things like right when Mike and I were starting this, and I'm going and I'm looking at old things, and like the same Anaheim video like kept coming up, and I'm looking at it and I'm watching it, I'm like, holy fuck, like these guys, like they're just snapping the puck around. I think Mike, I think the line that night had like 8 points or something like that, and it was like 5-1 in the second period. Like they were just like buzzing around the whole time, and it sucks because to what you guys were saying, like I think he's got to be like top probably 30 in like points per game as a Flyer, because he only played like 100 games, I think it was, even something like that. I think he had like 80 something points. Like he was pretty close. He was almost a point per game, only 100 games. But it's crazy like how much the effect that he had in such a short time, and like even the 06 playoffs against Buffalo, that goal that he had, or the assist on Desjardins' goal, where he's just like going around the zone, and he feeds it back to him, and he just fires in the net. Like the impact that he had was crazy.
I mean, obviously he's one of the best players. It's just too bad he couldn't figure that part of it out.
Yeah, we got him, and he was still pretty physical, and like his feet couldn't keep up. Like he had a little injury, but he was, paid a price. His body paid a price. He played really hard. Paid a pretty good price. So yeah.
Do you remember? I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember we were playing Pittsburgh at home, and we had just a horrendous first period. I think we were down 3-0 or 2-0, whatever it was. We were just getting killed. And Johnny Stevens came into the room, and he just went in and said, Peter Hatch, and I can't remember the third guy who it would have been that he called, and he said, come down to my office. And they go in there. You can just hear Johnny screaming. I wasn't in the office, but you could hear him screaming. They come back down, and Pete got fully undressed. And I'm like, this ain't good. This is not good. So then all of a sudden he walked into the bathroom, and he comes back and he gets dressed again, and he was pissed off. And I don't know if you remember, we scored 2 quick goals. I think he had something to do with them both. And then he almost decapitated Max Talbot in the corner. He got him with one of those reverse, Forsberg hits. Yeah. And I swear to God, I thought his head came off his body. And I remember Rex coming, Mark Recchi losing his mind, coming by our bench. You're fucking dead. Somebody's dead. I'm fucking Rex is pissed because Talbot was, he's a younger guy than, just getting his feet into the league there. But I just remember Fopa almost took his fucking head off, man. And he would do that too.
Peter dirty. He knew how to be dirty. Yeah. He knew how
Swedes.
to yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of those Swedes or sneaky, dirty players like that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny we're talking about him. Today is March 26th. So 28 years ago was my first game, and I get a text from people every March 26th. It was Detroit, Colorado. And speaking of Detroit, Colorado, in the goalie spot, he's the one who started it all. Peter is the one who started it all with Igor Larionov.
That's right. That's right.
He started the whole thing, and then, that's when Darren McCarty went after Claude Lemieux. Yeah. But again, to your point, here's a guy you think is a nice skill guy. Oh yeah, but he was tough skill, boy. Like he started one of the biggest, best brawls ever in NHL history. Yeah. And 28 years ago today. So that's kind of funny.
First game.
That was your first game? That was
my first game, yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that's something I did not know. I did not know that. Yeah, that is fucking awesome.
It's like every game. It's like every March 26th, there's some things that ping on my phone.
Yeah. And, I talk with you every week.
Say, you know where you were 28 years ago.
Yeah, I should have.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I had no idea that. That's great, man. Wow.
Yeah, because it's that, Mike, that being your first game, and then the Gretzky and Ovechkin, playing with both of them, the only guy to ever play like that. Those are the two coolest things.
Yeah.
In terms of trivia and whatnot.
Wait. So you had played. Obviously, you're in America. Oh, sorry. I was just saying.
Yeah. probably about a year and three, a year and 3/4 in the American League, and then got called up for that game. So yeah.
And were you just like, what the fuck did I just
I
walk
was
into?
like, this looks like a Friday night in the American League.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
it got to 3 or 4-1, it'd be like, oh, this looks normal. But I don't know. They had played like the week before, and all this stuff, and all that stuff happened with Draper and Lemieux the year before, and
that hit on foot too.
I don't know. There were a couple fights right away, and I don't know what was brewing. I don't know what was going on that night, but then Red Wings went down, and then that started, and it came back and won the game in OT. So Darren McCarty dragging Claude Lemieux around the ice got 4 minutes or something like that, and then to add insult to injury, scored the game winner, in OT to win the game. So that was one. That was pretty good. It's certainly a memorable first game, and I think it's cool. Wow. Like a lot of people outside Detroit know about that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." So certainly very memorable than just some Tuesday night game in January where you're just part of the schedule,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, Nessie, just kind of going back a little bit. I wanted to talk about the power play because obviously the power play now, the Flyers have struggled. Back then, you had probably the best seat in the house to watch it for like 10 years, from like around like when Mike played to 2015-ish, I think, or like probably towards like the end of Shane Gostisbehere when he was here. And I'm just curious, like in all the years like being behind the Flyers bench, what's like the best kind of unit like you could put together of 5 guys?
Well, I mean, obviously we had to have a decent power play noobs in 2007-8. It's not as fresh in my memory, but with noobs, Danny B, all those guys we've talked about, Hartnell, and all those guys and Loops, it was obviously good. I don't know what we were ranked, but the few years we had here with G, and I think that's the reason we won as many games and snuck into the playoffs a couple years with Giroux and Simmer and Voracek and Ghost, like you said, Chemo. I think that was what kind of got the Flyers into the playoffs. The Hackstall years, he made it twice, and I think a lot of that was from the power play. I know Joey Mullen had a pretty damn good record with being the power play coach. And noobs, like these coaches, they like, you have a power play coach. There's a lot that goes into special teams, and it's not just, like Rocky Thompson's, it looks bad. It's been bad. Let's be honest. And even Scotty Hartnell the other night, we were texting during a game because he said something, him and Al Morgani and Ashlyn were talking about it. And Hartz was like, it's just really bad. I don't know how else to say it. You can't mask it, right? Like, it's bad. I don't know. Noobs, you could answer a little bit better. Is it all talent? I understand there's a difference in talent on teams. You still have a man advantage, and it's funny when you go to games, Noobs. I'm sure you've heard it before. Like, everyone's screaming shoot, but there's a guy in a lane. You can't just fucking shoot the puck. It's not that easy. They're going the other way with a breakaway. But it's been bad, Chris. Obviously, it's stuck out like a sore thumb. And but like, I just think the way G ran a power play was pretty fucking impressive, and but this is tough to watch, actually. I feel bad for the guys. They're getting booed the whole time they're on the ice. It's not because it's not from a lack of effort. And like, I'm sure no one's saying Rocky, it's on you, and they're walking away. Torts has to have some hand in this. So
it's building continuity, right? You have some talent, and then you've got to build some continuity, but need somebody with a super special skill, while they're elite passer, which Claude was, and he played with a ton of poise, right? And then I remember he and Hartnell had a real nice little connection because he made that slip in that little backhand pass into the slot, and then Hartsey was a real good finisher from the slot there, and they had great chemistry. So it's just, and that's a couple years worth too. So it's building continuity and a little chemistry with people, and seeing where you want to go with things as it starts to materialize, and it's hard if you're changing units all the time. It's hard to do that. You get 5 different individuals, and I mean, I don't know, some teams lend themselves to that where that's how it is, and you want to try, and coaches trying to challenge guys and make guys play for it versus guy like Patrick Kane, I see a lot of Detroit play. Patrick Kane just stalls it right out and always makes the right play, and never gets challenged. And defensive teams know that, right? They know who's going to turn them inside and out. And if they don't have a lot of respect for your power play, they're going to try and keep you on the run and make it really hard on you to gain your space and to gain some find the quiet areas where you can kind of evolve your PP and get it going. But Patrick Kane, nobody's ever challenging him because he goes, he slips it right by him. So having just one anchor like that, a veteran anchor, is so such a big deal. But for some of those teams with better ones, Detroit happens to have a good one this year. But it's hard when you're flipping guys in and out a lot too to build continuity, in my opinion.
I would agree. It's they've kind of been. I mean, Zamula's run the point, and this year, I mean, probably every D man's been on. Like Risto was on it before.
I think everyone but Sealer has been on the power play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I feel bad for the guys that get booed every time.
Yeah. No, it's not, like you said, it's not for lack of trying. They're they're trying to implement everything that's that Rocky's saying, and see it on video where it looks nice and easy. Oh yeah, we can do that. And then it gets really hard in the games. The easiest spot to watch a game is from the stands, right? Game's so easy from the stands, but for the players, I mean, like you say, it's not for lack of trying. They love being on the power play. They want to do the proper things so they get asked to be on it again. That you go back out. So it's not like anybody's not trying to do the right things.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like even recently, like last night, the game in Toronto, they ended up using 5 forwards at one point. So like obviously they're trying to make it different and do different things. It's feel like most of this year it's been Ristolainen as QB. Like you've seen that a lot. Michkov is kind of going all over the place. He's been like kind of down low. He's played on both flanks, like all that. Like they haven't had a bumper guy. They probably haven't had a net front guy since Wayne Simmons. I don't think they've had like a decent QB since probably Ghost. You saw a little bit of spurts with Provy when Provorov was here, but like it's really did down and it sucks because like for me, like when I was first getting into the Flyers and like it was around Mike here last year in the NHL, it was like power play was like the only way they could score. It was like, oh shit, we're getting a power play, and like they never scored 5-on-5 because you had Jake Simmons, Shen, all them guys, and and slowly but surely it just kind of went away. And then like I remember the
Llegó la primavera JCPenney con la última moda. Piezas cómodas y ligeras. Mezcla y combina lo nuevo de tus marcas favoritas y crea looks originales que se acomodan a tu presupuesto, como las polos de St. John's Bay con un pantalón en algodón o un simple suéter y jeans de A&A. Encuentra el bolso de Liz Claiborne que siempre has querido y sandalias que combinen. Para noches más cálidas, elige pijamas ligeras y frescas de Briere. Trae a tu familia y descubran lo nuevo de primavera. JCPenney. Vale la pena.
I think the worst stretch the power play had at that time was like the bubble. Like it was bad, and like this has been the past couple of years, but like it's been brutal to watch. And I don't know. I think for like it kind of goes into like my next question, which was about the comments from Torts last night. I just don't know how you can keep preaching accountability and then not change the power play coach. And I'm not trying to say it's all on Rocky because I think it's pretty obvious that the Flyers have some talent, issues here because they don't have a ton of guys. But Nancy, like you said, they have a man advantage, and I do think they have some pretty skilled younger guys to at least score and not be 30th last wherever that they're probably going to end up finishing. And again, it kind of goes into my next point from last night was just kind of both your guys' thoughts on the Torts' comments from last night's game because they lose 7-2, and this was a comment that just immediately like blew up. Like the whole internet was just like, what the fuck, like this whole thing. So I'll read it here for anyone who hasn't heard it, but he said, this falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. So this falls on me, getting them prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end. And it's if you brush it over, it's like, all right, like I get it, like he's being a little accountable, but like to the people that pay like and literally like thousands of dollars to go to these games, it's not like it's not like you really I mean nothing's cheap anymore, but it's not like anything with the Flyers right now is cheap, Like people pay a lot of money to go to these games and watch this, and it's they've been rebuilding and haven't hosted a home playoff game since fucking 2018, and then you get the coach that signed up in a rebuild to say this, and it's like, for like me, that's a diehard. It's kind of like a what the fuck, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if you look at it, I don't know. I mean, I'm not thrilled hearing that, if I'm being honest, but I was just curious, what do you guys think about it?
Noobs, you played. Let you go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, no, it's hard, it's frustrating, and everybody's frustrated, and you're trying to say, well, I'll take the blame for this. I certainly didn't like, I didn't like how, saying I didn't like how I had them prepared, and okay, so it's hard, and again, we talked about before, like everybody's trying here, and it gets frustrating, right? And he's just voicing some frustration that that this is on us, and on him and the staff, and I don't whether it is or not, it's part of deflecting for your players a little bit, and trying to get things going and get things ready for the next game. So who knows? Today you might have some meetings and a little hopefully a good practice. And hopefully you got your pet back in practice today and moving on. So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. The game was at Toronto, right? I was watching some of it, and Toronto was buzzing pretty good. They Tavares scored. Tavares had a 4-point night. William Nylander shooting, scoring on a long range wrister off a face off. Like it's just not their night, And so,
Right.
how do you? It's really hard for coaches to I don't know, you got to figure out how you can move your team forward, as much as you can.
Yeah. That's basically what I was going to say. I feel like he's definitely frustrated. Obviously he's frustrated. If he's not, we got something to worry about, right? Like if he's not frustrated, but I think he kind of said that and then quickly said, it's on me though. Like, I think he's probably frustrated. And maybe he doesn't, like you said, like I'm sure no coach really wants to coach when it's like this, but you knew what you were signing up for as well. I don't know. But like Noob said, he's just frustrated. I'm sure, very frustrated. I'm sure they're working a lot on the power play. I know a couple weeks ago I was there and they were doing it for almost an hour. I know they're working on it. Like we said, a lot goes into the special teams, and they're trying. It's frustrating. You think it's not frustrating for the players? Like they don't need Torts telling them that the power play is not working. Like Noobs could probably tell you that. You're the first person to know that it's not working when you're the guy out there doing it, right?
Yeah, no, you can feel it. Yeah, you're going over the boards. You feel it some nights. You're like, this isn't going to be good. I'm just not feeling it with our group. I don't know what it is, if it's this group or just our mojo where we're at, what's been going on the last week or two. But you can hop over the boards and be like, well, might as well just knock 2 minutes off the clock here. So, hopefully we don't give up one.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It'd be nice to see the poor guys just get some puck luck and get a bounce here or there. Like once I feel like you haven't really had that either. Not you earn your breaks. I get it, but I just, like I said before, I feel bad for the guys. They're trying. But yeah, that statement got a lot of, I was getting a bunch of messages. What's this guy say? I'm like, I don't know, man. I wasn't there. I heard it, but like Noob said, I think he's frustrated and probably showed a little bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, No, I totally get it too. I mean, for me, it's different, I think, because I want them to win. I'm just like so over the rebuild, you know what I mean? And it's a different kind of feeling. But no, I totally.
You're in one now, buddy. You're in a rebuild, and that's like it's funny, like all the people are screaming for it, and they're not easy, man. This isn't going to get pretty by next season. Mm-hmm. Like that, right? Like it's going to take Danny's saying 2 to 3. If they can do it in 2 years, God, that'd be amazing because you've stripped it down, and that's what kind of the fans in Philly, they're so passionate, and I love it. Like it's just funny though when you go to a game and Like, I'm just like, if people are around me and they're like booing, I'm like, what are you booing for? You guys want to rebuild.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. It's not going to be
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just,
yeah.
and like Noob said earlier, like that revamp that Homer did, I don't know how many teams have ever done it like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we win the cup if we're totally healthy, because that Pittsburgh team was great, but the fact that you guys got to the conference final that next year after having the worst season ever, I don't know how many times that's ever happened. So,
Right, right.
it's not going to be like that this time. You're not going to be able to revamp, and
Yeah.
a lot of questions, noobs like you being a former player. And this is definitely not shitting on Torts, because I really like Torts a lot. I've worked with him 4 times, like I had said before.
Mhm.
And he's a really good man. But players, did you see the vote about like who you least likely to play for or would want to play for? They do those
Oh, it's in the athletic.
votes.
Was it the athletic or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Torts was number 1 that you players. So, everyone's talking about signing these free agents. It could be tough doing that too right now.
Yeah,
If he's,
yeah.
and I'm not wishing Torts isn't there. I don't wish that on anyone. I went through that shit. It's not fun. I know he's a coach and they're kind of, what is it? Lavi said, we were helping him move in. He goes, yeah, in about 3 to 3.5 years, you'll be helping me move out. That's usually how long,
Yeah,
I last, and
yeah,
that's,
yeah, yeah,
coaches always say that, but,
yeah.
I think it's going to be tough, getting free agents to sign right now. I mean, you don't have a ton of room, but you have a little bit of room this summer to mess with.
Yeah, it's you always wonder if some guys, I know where guys are in their careers, and if they, what type, I haven't really, that's a good point. I don't really think about that much. Like what a presence like that would really, or is it, if that coach is that presence, that would be that determining factor. And I mean, you got to believe it's got a little something to do with it. But then there's guys that like a little challenge too.
Right.
They like that passion, that energy and stuff. And I don't know, I guess it depends on personality a little bit. And some guys are like, well, I'll find out for myself. I'm signing this deal. I'll find out for myself.
Yeah.
So, money has something to do with it too, dudes.
A little bit, yeah. So I was
throw a
just gonna
few
say
sheets
that,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah. Well, you got enough. If there's enough tied to it all, it's you're like, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
I was laughing the other day. We had Eric Johnson here, and I had EJ at the World Championships when he was 18 years old. That first year, and it was funny. He was here this year, and he was. I think he was on the network the other day. They were interviewing him, and he was just like, he had nothing but good things to say. And I was like, I was happy to hear him say it. He was talking about the Flyers organization as a whole, the way you're treated, which is it now with Danny and Jonesy back. It's more back to the way Mr. Snyder liked things to go, and in a very much family type organization anyway. And I think a lot of teams do that now. You have to almost, but it was just funny. EJ was like, I love Torts. And I only played like half the games. I'm like, well, he ain't going to mess with a 17-year vet or however long. He's been playing and he's scratched half the time. So it's not going to be too hard on EJ, but I like what he said. And some guys could take it, noobs, like some guys could take it. Some guys can't.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he was buying what he was selling, what Torch was selling, right? And that's always good. You really, I see where he's going with it, and young guys are young guys, and they can be stubborn and they've had it a certain way. And, a lot of guys realize they've got to adjust when they get to the league. And if you want to stay in the league for a while, you might not be the way you fancied yourself as a player. And sometimes Torch is that little bit of reality check, and some guys want to hear it and some guys don't. And the guys that adjust and they're like, well, if he's seen a lot of hockey, like if he thinks this is what I need to be as a player and what I need to project as a player, well, maybe I probably should listen to that. Maybe I'm not running the PPs anymore. I'm more of a grinder type guy. And, I guess that answers a question 6 or 7 years later, if you're still playing or not, so.
Yeah, true.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You got to listen to the guy. I mean, he's seen a lot of players. He's seen a lot of guys at various points of their career. He's on to something at some point. So you got to, the onus is on you as a young player to kind of filter that and figure out what he's trying to get through to you and digest it and go with it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tough to hear sometimes though, but
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then just kind of off that, for you, I'll just kind of throw this out there for both you guys. Obviously, it's getting kind of down to the wire with the season and whatnot. Obviously, it's been pretty tough, but in terms of like certain individuals and whatnot, who's probably your guys' most improved player from this season for the Flyers? I know we were talking about the other night, Nasty, but not to throw on the
Yeah,
spot,
no. Chris thinks Drysdale's the most improved,
I do.
and I always bust his chops on anything he says. So he'll tell you that. I
That
just
is
try to
true.
argue with him as much as I can. But
Yeah.
I think Drysdale's got like I think like he's such a God. Obviously, he can skate. Like it's just he makes it look easy with guys like that. That drive you nuts, noobs, watching guys just float on the ice like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But God, the most improved. I thought Sandy real. I mean, not that Sandy had a bad year last year. I thought up until he was named to Team Canada, I thought he was really playing well.
Mhm.
I don't think he's. I mean, I don't think he's played terrible by any means, but I don't think he's been quite the same as he was at the first, 40, 50 games of the year. But
Right.
man, most improved. You know who I'll say, but I'm gonna go with Bobby Brink, and it just that line really, Forrester. Those guys to me, man, like they bring it every night. I like when they play. I wouldn't even break them up, noobs. That's just the armchair coach here. Like I know he has to. They're kind of you don't have a lot of they've gotten rid of a lot of players, but I would just keep those guys together.
Yeah.
They play a good 200-foot game and they put points on the board.
Well, then I agree with you. That was going to be my choice, and I'm not taking the easy way out here, but that was my choice. I just feel, and kind of being moved around, being sent to Lehigh Valley. There's a great example of perseverance and figuring it out, and now finding two other guys that they finally click with, and then being kind of one of the guys that gets left alone now, and just can keep
Right,
playing.
yeah.
So yeah, that's probably doing a lot of wonders for him, that he knows, like, I seem to be in a nice little niche right here where, I'm playing hard. As long as I keep playing hard, nobody's going to mess with me, and I can kind of just keep improving. So that was my vote. My quick vote there off the top of my head was Bobby there. And,
Yeah.
just kind of that he solidified his spot, within the organization a bit here, more than, when it could have been really up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I
We
feel like
agree.
it's
See that,
definitely
Chris?
a good beat. No, I mean, it's definitely a good choice. I mean, he's fifth on the team in points. Not that that's a huge stretch, but at his age, his size, the way I think the biggest thing I like about Brink is the way he wins pucks and the way he checks in the corners and whatnot. And as you guys said, like that line's been good. For a guy again like his age, his size, to have 33 points, and he's had some pretty good moments on the power play and whatnot too. Like if they had probably a better power play and were a little, scored a little bit more, he probably could be in that 45, 50 point range. And that's the thing that sucks is a lot of these guys could probably be at that, like connecting. He was struggling for a while, and he's got 2 goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
Michkov, he kind of fell off a little bit, and he picked it up times, and he's got 51, and it's tough because I think that's the hardest thing. And Mike, I'm sure you probably have seen this over the years, like how hard it is, and we talked about this recently, like playing in a season like this, it's hard for confidence. And like obviously like everyone's like, oh well, this guy regressed, this guy regressed, this guy regressed. Well, it's like, well, like no shit. I mean, like look at who's playing. You know what I mean? It's hard. Like you're playing a lot of minutes, a power play struggling, and like they're moving guys out. And I mean, when Tippett like posts on Instagram and you see like Farabee and Frost and like how hard it hit the room, it's like, well, no shit, he's gonna struggle a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's just one of them things where it's just like everything is kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, but it's just been a tough year, and you want to see improvements from guys, but it's hard because they're like, they're in a rebuild like we were talking about, and like it's so hard to see improvements at the same time.
Yeah, I know. You feel like the sky's falling, right? And everybody feels the sky's falling. So it's easy to say, they're regressing and all that, but yeah, it's easy at this point to really point that finger, and you got to look a little deeper, and who solidified their spots a little bit more, and who's who seems to be thriving, at least not, thriving, but at least going better than they did at this point last year, so it's hard, it's hard. It's, instead of two handfuls of guys, you're talking about a handful of guys or whatever. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do sometimes. So,
right.
And Noobs, I don't know how much you get to watch the Flyers, but I still like these guys, man. I give them credit because like even the other day in Dallas, like right away, I think the first two shots went in the net. And because I'm getting messages, like, why is this happen every game? But man, they battled their asses off and they get back in the game. They did it the game before. I know last night was a little different, but like you said, Nylander's throwing pucks at the net and they're just bouncing in, shit like that. But I still, man, I give these guys a lot of credit, man. They're working their asses off. They're doing what they can. They're playing as hard as they can, and that's all you can really ask. Because how do you, they know they're going through a rebuild too, and it's, they're just trying to make the best of it. But at least they're battling and they're not quitting. That's what Flyer, you want to see as a Flyer. You're not going to give up. And Noobs, Danny B, like that guy hated losing, like as a player. Who doesn't hate losing? Like you hated losing, but I could guarantee you he's not sitting upstairs happy that they're losing. Except for maybe in the end of it, you're going to get rewarded, unfortunately. But at least I got to give Danny a lot of credit, man. He's doing something that's really hard to do, and he's sticking by what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it. So we got to live with it for a little bit, as unfortunate as it is.
Yeah, I know it's good to see the guys are playing hard, and it's, again, as a young player, you got to realize, I'm playing for next year here. There's going to be changes around here, and the heads are going to roll a little bit, and it's who's it going to be? Is it, which player? They're going to be changes. So,
right.
All you can do is make yourself A, more appealing to the Flyers if you want to stay there, or B, make yourself appealing to somebody else. But no doubt it's not tough circumstances, especially you brought up the Dallas game going down 2-0 early. It's like, man, I'm just not even settled in the game yet. We got this huge hole to climb out of, and then we know what it's like to chase games constantly. Like, it's exhausting. It's one thing when you're playing games and you're out in front and you can kind of put it in cruise, you don't have to go 100. You can kind of maybe throttle down. You're going 85, 90 and making safe plays and just getting out with a win. But when you're chasing games all the time, it gets exhausting, and it's especially when you give up a couple early and if you're 55 minutes left in the game, you're down 2-0. You got to chase the game the whole time. It adds extra wear and tear on everybody, and emotionally and physically.
Yeah, right. The mental side of it too. It's like here we go again, right?
Yeah, right.
Noobs, you just made me think of something. We were talking about this. Riley and I were talking about this last week. Just say you're still playing. You're TK. You're 28 years old, and this is going to be another 3 years. What's your mindset?
Yeah. That's a good question because you locked in and would you just sign 8 years or something, 7-8 years? Yeah, that's where you got to have some faith, right? And I'm sure at the end of the season they bring in their leadership group and the guys that are longer term guys, be like, hey, have some faith in us, have some trust that we're gonna get this together here, and we got a plan and we'll figure it out here. But all you can do is get reassurances from the front office, right? That they're gonna figure stuff out. So I don't know. You're like, well, they did made this commitment to me, then I'm going to commit, too. Like I gotta, I'm in on this deal too. And I got to help guide this too, so that's the way I look at it. So, this is a big challenge for me too. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cause the reason I asked that was because you played and, he's in the prime, basically the prime of his career. I would say 20, he's 28 years old. So I just wonder in the back of his mind, like I haven't talked to him in about a month, but I would even ask him. To me, it's just like, man, this is tough. And you could see how frustrated he's been. And I was so happy the other night he scored, finally put one in the net. I mean, who are they playing at home, Chris, the other day where he gets the breakaway and then he comes down and he literally shoots it right off the post. It was the last home game before they went.
Tampa, the shootout.
Yeah. I mean,
hits all three posts.
Yeah, well, it was in overtime, wasn't it? No, not even that. It was in overtime. Michkov made a sick pass to
and he
him,
hit the 2-0
and
and he
he
missed
just
it.
literally
Yeah.
shoots. I mean, he's got the
Yeah.
whole and I'm just like, this guy's gonna break every stick on his rack when
Yeah,
he
yeah,
goes into
right.
the room. But anyway, I just thought I wanted to hear what you thought about that. Being a player and it's got to be tough on him. But I like what you said there. They made a commitment to him, and I'm
Yeah.
sure he's not thinking, "Oh, I want to get traded." I don't mean that at all. I just mean as a player, how what's your mindset there when it's going to be a couple of years. That's all.
Yeah, I got to hold my end of the bargain here, and it's going to
Right.
get better. You have to be an optimist a little bit. That hey, this is
Right.
a real NHL organization. This is why they know what they're doing. They're going to get this back in order. So
Yeah.
that's what you got to have faith in. So
that you had it lucky. You got a cup pretty early on. So some of these guys, like Shane Doan, we were talking about him the other day too, man. Like being in with the Coyotes there for so long and offered to trade him to teams that had a chance, and he said no, I'm gonna stay here. And it's pretty admirable to do that. But anyway, sorry, Chris. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there. I just wonder what Noobs thought about that.
No, not at all. No, I mean, outside of that, nasty, unless you want to go on another tangent, that's all we got. But no,
I don't have any. I do want to tell you this though, and I think I told Noobs this before, but so I was doing I did a world. I think it was my second world championship. We were in Moscow, and Mike Sullivan was our coach. And do you remember Brant Berglund, Noobs, the video coach in Boston?
Yeah.
Brant, great guy, right?
Video guy in Boston. Yeah.
Great guy. Yeah, Brant. And most intense video guy I've ever seen in my life, right?
Yeah.
So we had an early practice or something, and so we get in the Skoda van. They take you around in the vans, and they told us when we got there, like, stay in groups. We were in Moscow. We were mostly in nice areas, so we go for lunch. It was about a midday lunch and mid afternoon, I should say, and so we're having a few cocktails, some beers and everything, and so Sully's got that loud voice. Noobs knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Chris, we were playing in this big arena, and there's only like 2,000 people. You could hear that man outside the arena. But what I wanted to say was it just made me laugh. I think about it. I think about it all the time. Is we're having some beers. Well, Brant had stopped drinking beer. He cut it off. He just said he got too wound up when he was an excited guy. Anyway, he's pretty intense. So we're sitting there, and Sully's like, God, these beers are good. God, they're cold. Brant's like, sitting right here, Mike. I quit drinking 6 months ago. Stop reminding me, right? It was like a sitcom. So then the funny part I wanted to say about Noobs was I'm like dying laughing. I'm like, are the cameras? Are we like on Seinfeld or something? Like, because it's just so funny, the back and forth. And Sully's not even listening to Brant, right? He's just commenting, and he's beside me, so I'm hearing him. So he goes, we get in the van, and he goes, we start driving to this other place, and Sully's like, how's my boy Mikey Knuble? Mikey, he says, Mikey Knuble doing? And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm like, he's the best, man. Like, what a guy, blah, 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 pumping Noobs' tires a little bit here. But no, it was true. I was like, great guy, man. I love him. And he goes, the Bruins, they, now we've been drinking, he's like, they screwed this. How do you get rid of Mikey Knuble? And he was the coach there, Chris. And so as he's saying this, Brant's beside me, goes, still work for the Bruins, Mike. Yeah, still with the team, I'm crying. I almost pissed myself. I laughed for like 2 straight hours with Sully and then Brant, going back. But boy, he loved Noobs. I tell people that story all the time. It was so funny, man.
No, that's good. Brant was like a video guy, and then very intense, and like if he could go down the hallway and fight the other video guy every night, he would have.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's funny you said that. Yes. And so I told Adam Patterson, who's still the video coach, when I got back, I said, holy smokes, you got to wait till you see this Brant Burley. He goes, oh, he's fucking nuts. I don't even go to, usually we go talk, and he goes, every time he comes to talk to me, he shakes my hand like Bob the Hound Kelly, like squeezes it off. And he's like, doesn't break a smile, and just like, got everything you need. And Adam said the one time, he's like, hey, is there any way I can get that thing tonight? And Brant looked at him like he wanted to take one of his kids away from him. And he was like, oh, you can just send it, he says. So so anyway, I said to Brant, I like text him. We were going into Boston. I said, dude, you got to do me a favor. You got to come walking into the coach's room, the video room, and say, where's Adam Patterson? We got to have a talk here. And he did. And I just thought Adam would laugh. He was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He was like, what's wrong? He was afraid because he's, Brant wasn't small either. Like he was like huge. Everybody's big to me because I'm a midget, but anyway, Brant was super intense. He went around, Chris. So he set the video up for for Team USA, right? Every day we did video, and he went to every stall to make sure every stall could see. He would get up, go sit in the stall, make sure you could see. I'm like, what's this guy doing, man? He's nuts. But anyway, I had to tell that story because Sully, he just loved Noobs, man. He just he must have talked about you every day we were there.
It's funny. We never crossed paths ever.
So, really? Oh, that's too bad, man. I guarantee he'd give you a big hug. I guarantee because he loved you, man. That's all he was talking about.
Well, that's always good to hear. Yeah.
That's funny.
So,
yeah. No, I mean, Nasty, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a blast, and hopefully we get you on next time. It'll be some better hockey to talk about at some point. But thanks, thanks again,
Chris. It'll get better, buddy. Okay, it'll get better. Ask Noobs; he knows it'll get better.
It can. It's going to get better. It's got to.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
It has to.
It has to. There's only one way we can go.
I'll see you the golf outing weekend, Nasty. Yeah.
Yes, sir. You will, man. You take care of yourself, man.
You got it, buddy.
So good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Nasty. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.